an AP department at Camp Edwards, and we are sharing with you today, or I'm sharing with you today, some ways for you to create different types of menu and choice boards to help student engagement and the differentiation for gifted students. So just to give you, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is from NAGC, and it also is our definition for gifted and talented. The highlighted area are the things that I want you to focus on. So it's students, youth that have a high evidence of high achievement capability in the areas such as intellectual, which we call it general intellectual or GI, creativity or creative, artistic, which is going to be your visual performing arts type of identification, or leadership, or the specific academic areas, which include reading, math, science, and social studies. And those are the students that we are focusing on, trying to provide them enrichment during this time and obviously all year long. So by understanding the characteristics in each area of giftedness, teachers and parents are better able to work together to provide a challenging and rigorous curriculum for these unique students. So some of the characteristics to think about for gifted learners, and some of these are very visible within the classroom. They're abstract thinkers. They easily recognize patterns. They have a very high vocabulary. They're usually 1 or 2 grade levels above their peers, and it doesn't have to be in all areas. So depending on what area they are identified in, they would be 1 or 2 grade levels above. So that the myth of gifted kids are gifted in all areas and everything is a myth. So if they're gifted in reading, they would be 1 or 2 grade levels above, but they might not be in math or science or social studies. They're very observant. They're independent workers. Sometimes they do have that tendency because usually they are perfectionists and they don't want to work with other students. They want to do their own work and do it the way that they want to do it. They are, especially your creativity and probably your visual performing arts students, are sensitivity and compassion, showing empathy to others. And they sometimes already know the information being taught. So that's why we want to give them some enrichment. So providing enrichment in the way of choice boards and menu boards is really a way to differentiate. So when you differentiate instruction, you're recognizing students' varying backgrounds, their knowledge, readiness, language, their preferences in learning and interests, and to react responsibly. Differentiated instruction is a process to teaching and learning for students of differing abilities in the same class. So one of the quotes that I like for gifted students, just to remind them that unless you try to do something beyond what you've already mastered, you will never grow. And that's one of the things we always want to have continuous progress with our gifted students and not let them stagnate. So we need to be open to letting a student that has an in-depth understanding of a concept help teach the class. And by that, I mean, they're not standing up in front, but maybe you can give them an independent project. They could do a passion project on a topic that you're teaching, and they could share what they've learned outside of what you're teaching within the classroom. So it's giving them that level of being an expert in an area and letting them share that expertise with the class. Learning to be the guide on the side for these students, not the sage on the stage. So a lot of times they, like I said, they like working independently. So these menu boards and choice boards are really good for them because it gives them the option to doing something that the other students are doing, but at a different level. And usually they can do it by themselves. Remembering that progressive knowledge is the goal in learning to move students beyond mastery. And choice is good. It increases student motivation. So I always like this little cartoon. I've used it a lot. In order to meet the needs of gifted students, we must have a better understanding of what differentiation looks like for students. And it just says, thinking outside the box is difficult for some people, so we have to keep trying. Our students deserve it. All right. So another thing that we have to think about is that the learning should be just right for each student. And the key is to start with just one type of differentiation strategy and then build on to more strategies as you become better at one. Then maybe you can add something different. I'm going to show you more than these 3 types of differentiation. There's one called the Bloom chart, the Think Tactile and Jigsaw, and this is Dr. Roberts and Dr. Inman from WKU, and it's from one of their books. All right, so some of the benefits of using menu and choice boards, we've already talked about some of these. Obviously, it's allowing for student voice and choice, differentiates learning, provides flexibility, offers independent activities, and encourages responsibility and accountability. All right, so now I'm going to slow down a little bit. So this is the first one, a Bloom chart, and I'm going to show you an example, and then I will show you a blank one, is using the same content or topic, but varying the learning activities by using the different levels of Blooms, such as create, evaluate, analyze, apply, remember, and understand. So this is the revised Blooms. So as you can see, you want to get the students up to these higher levels of evaluate and create. So these are just different types of products. Obviously, there are hundreds of different ways that students can show you their learning and their mastery of a topic or a standard. All right. So this is a Bloom chart that I used when I taught SCATs at WKU while I was working on my gifted specialist degree. And this was one of the things that we used for the students to be able to have choice. It was actually middle school. So these are... it's just an easy way to design learning experiences that allow the content to remain the same while altering the process and the product to provide challenge and choice. So the way that this is not in color, but the way I color coded it was the students had to pick between the top 2. They could pick this was, I think this was yellow and a blue, yellow, blue, yellow, blue. But so they had to pick either one from create and evaluate, one from analyze and apply, and one from understand and remember. The content was all about myth characteristics. And so then the process is different. And so with create, obviously they created a debate dialogue, and then it gives them the directions, like using a debate forum, create a dialogue between Hades and Demeter on who should have Persephone for the majority of the year. If they chose evaluate, they were an advocate, and they were going to write a letter to Zeus, and it was writing a persuasive letter to Zeus, the same type of thing. So they had to understand the story very well, which we had broken it down and worked with it a lot during that week. And then this was the final products for the week after they went through the story. So analyze was compare with a Venn diagram. Apply was to relate, and with a newspaper article, sorry. Understand was to summarize and do a storytelling, which was, I used a digital program called Storybird, but they could use whatever they wanted to. Oh, sorry. And then the last one was remembering, which was identifying and using photo story. So, and they just retold the myth using photos and text that way. So that is one way to use it. And here is a blank one. So it's very easy to recreate, and you could recreate it in Google Docs or a Google slide, and then let them know what how many you wanted them to do. They don't have to do 3 like I made my. We had plenty of time. We were there for 2 weeks, so they had plenty of time to work on it. But you could choose what you wanted your students to do based on their level of understanding of whatever the content was. So then there's another one called Think Tactile. It addresses content in a variety of ways by allowing students to pick their own activities, one from each row to complete. And it's a great strategy to incorporate Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences. All right, so I'm not sure how well you can read this, but so this one was also, this was one I used with 5th graders when I was working in the library and I was working in Bullitt County. So we were doing mythology as well. And so the students, the way this works is I set up my topics. So I had one row for characters and things that I wanted them to, they could choose one of these. Setting was another one, and they could choose one of these to do. Then myth characteristics, which we had gone over in depth, they used one of these. This one actually has a rubric with it, so that if you need to use it for a grade, which you would in a classroom, as a gifted teacher, I would not use it with a rubric, but I would give definite feedback on any of the products that the students give to me. And then this is just an example of a couple of things that the kids did. So he would have picked this, the one in the middle, this one on settings, and this first one on myth characteristics. And I can see that he did a compare and contrast, and then this looks like he did a story map. All right, another example for Tactile or tic-tac-toe board for younger students. And this is out of one of the books that I have in the resources at the end. These are wonderful. This is a K2 book for math, and they just choose one shape from each row to complete. Obviously with, depending on what grade level you use it for, because there could be kindergartners that definitely need some enrichment if they already know all their numbers and they're ready to move on to addition. You would have to probably work with this in a small group and give them a little bit of guidance on how to create some of these different products. So they would choose one square, one circle, and one diamond in order to finish up their products for this unit. And then this is a blank think-tac-toe. You can see how easy it is to create. There's not much to it. You can even have the think-tac-toe where if you do it digitally, where you can put links in for them to go and complete different activities. So it's almost like its own choice board that we did in the spring for gifted students, which I'll show you at the end. So a meal menu is where you're actually using the words like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then dessert. And so it has at least a total of 9 predetermined choices, as well as 2 enrichment options for students. All the products carry the same weight for grading. There is, in the book that they come from, there are rubrics already created to help score the different products that the students have to create. And they have similar expectations for completion for time and effort. And you can use the different levels of Bloom or incorporate the different learning styles.
And Christy, I just really like the meal menu choices. I think one that's just so creative, getting students to have choice in their classroom. And definitely, I like the title, the meal menu.
The meal menus are fun.
Yes.
This is one I actually used here in Jefferson with, I'm trying to think, I think it was second graders, maybe first graders. And so they were allowed to choose their own chapter book. We did a book study. And so this one is very generic. It's also in the books that I'll show you at the end. And so the students basically choose one choice for breakfast, one choice for lunch, one choice for dinner, and one. With my gifted students, they have to do a dessert because they usually pick the free choice, and then they just tell me what they want to do to share their chapter book with me. And so they can work on these as they go along while they're reading their chapter book. So it's a good way to keep them on task so that they know what they need to be working on while we're reading as well. All right, so here is the JCPS. So these are the ones that we created back in the spring. And I just wanted to share, these are what we know in JCPS as the choice boards that we were all given. I'm going to show you the upper grade level ones. So for gifted students, these are still good options. They're still up. You can use the link in my presentation to get to them. So knowing what your students are identified in, and we are doing better at identification. So now we have students that are identified in reading, math, there's probably some science, there may be some social studies now. I know we're doing leadership, we're working on creativity, and obviously we have the general intellectual. General intellectual children, they can choose anything from the choice boards. But if these two, the way we had these set up was we had 2 sections for LA identification, 2 sections for math identification, 2 sections for social studies identification, 2 sections for science identification. So the students that are identified with specific academic areas, they had 2 choices to choose from. And then this bottom one was creativity. This one was if they had leadership identification. This is visual performing arts. I think this one is drama. And I think this is just the visual arts. So these are still useful for any students that need any kind of enrichment. They are there, they are available. So we definitely would like for you to continue using them to help your students receive the enrichment that they need during this time, especially if your school doesn't have a gifted resource teacher or itinerant teacher, as we're now called. So if you don't have a teacher, but you know you have students that are identified gifted, please make use of these. All right, I want to move a little bit quicker. So this is where I got a lot of the information and the research. This is Dr. Roberts and Dr. Inman. They are actually collaborating with JCPS and helping us make our gifted program even better. And this is another really good resource. It's a book called Teaching Gifted Kids in Today's Classroom. She gives lots of good, valuable information and ideas for working with gifted students in the classroom. It's really a good book. So the one where I got the menu board and the one that looked like the tic-tac-toe with the shapes for the younger students is these. This is called differentiated instruction with menus. They are in all the different areas. I have K2, science, social studies, math, language arts, and then I have 3 through 5 in the same areas. So it's all your specific academic areas. Everything, they're made, the menu boards are made for you. So if your school has extra money, these are an excellent resource for schools. I highly recommend them. This one is really good about just trying to help you with differentiation and how it looks and works in a classroom. So that's another good resource. Oh, sorry. So I did do this page for you. So just for general, oh my gosh, so sorry. I keep moving my thing. So gifted resources, you have the CAGE website, you have NAGC, Mensa for Kids. I get a lot of my lesson plans from there. You could actually look at the lesson plans for there and turn them into, turn some of the activities into choice boards. PBS Learning Media is always a great place to find different types of interactive and digital learning for students that will provide enrichment. And then on the other side, we have the menu and choice board resources. These are all digital. So there are some that are already created. There are some that are just templates for you to use. Like, I think it's this one. So she has all these templates that already have, where she already has a choice board up. And then all you have to do is use the she's got everything set up for you. And they're just templates with different backgrounds. So that saves a lot of work. It's really nice. This one has a lot of choice boards and games. So these are already created for you. So there's just all these different types of menu boards that you can go ahead and use. And I just wanted to give you some things that were already created so you didn't have to do a lot. And some of these are also like templates of things that you can use. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions or you need better copies of things, I can send you PDFs of like the Bloom chart and the Think Tactile. You can just contact me at my email.
Yes, thank you. And when you said that sharing resources, I always say sharing is caring, especially if it's already curated out there. There's no reason to go out there and recreate the wheel. You can just edit it how you want to be edited.
I do that a lot. Yeah. I am going into my 30th year. I have recreated lots of wheels that are already made. So always good to use resources that are already, if they're out there, make use of them. Especially the JCPS choice boards. We really would like for people to go back and, you can assign those to your gifted students that are identified and have them do some of those during the week. They need some enrichment. So, but as always, all of our resources are for all students. So even if they're not identified, any of the resources are available for all students. So.
Yeah, and it's good that those choice boards are still out there. And like you said, teachers can access that link.